Welcome, welcome everyone to the next edition of the Stay on Course podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Malka Shaw. She is a psychotherapist and trauma specialist who brings clarity, courage, and heart to some of the most complex conversations of our time. With deep expertise in Jewish mental health, relationships, workplace dynamics, anti Semitism, and the psychology of radicalization, Malka helps people make sense of hard things without making them heavier than they need to be. Welcome, Malka, to the Stay on Course podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. It's such an honor, Julie, to have you on your show.
Wow. Well, it's been a long time coming,
That's true.
very long time. But Malka, before I get started, I ask all of my guests, what is your favorite food?
I like to eat healthy these days, so a nice big salad with a scoop of tuna.
So no chips with the tuna.
No, but it is the middle of Hanukkah, and Hanukkah we do eat a lot of bad food. So Hanukkah is all about donuts and latkes and all things fried.
Oh, okay.
And the newest trend is the Dubai chocolate donut.
Oh, I've heard about
It's
this.
very trendy. It's very trendy.
Okay, okay. Because I went to a place the other day. I didn't know it was trendy. I didn't know it was trending, but maybe I should have tried it.
It's the new thing. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for being on my show today. We're going to talk about the Trust Toolkit and psychological safety and wellness in the workplace. And I want to go through the ingredients for success for creating this psychological safety and wellness. But I also want to hear a little bit about your backstory. Just to, like, tell us how you got to this moment right now. The quick 2 minute version.
Well, thank you so much for asking. I've been in the field for over 25 years and I've had a private practice for close to 18 years. But I also have a very deep background in trauma. I was involved in 9/11, and in America, there's very few therapists that are involved in large scale active trauma. So I've had this skill set that was dormant for many years and unfortunately had to come out after the October 7th massacre and stand up for my own community, the Jewish community, and work towards speaking out and towards anti-Semitism and helping the Jews work towards healing and building resilience after the rise in anti-Semitism and dealing with the war in Israel. With this background, I was able to then take what I know about trauma and do a lot of research on how radicalization and extremism works and take that to obviously the places where it needs to be, but also into the regular places because we're seeing that it's impacting healthcare spaces, it's impacting schools, and it's impacting workplaces. And a lot of organizations have now brought me into their ERG space and brought me in to do workplace wellness. Unfortunately, politics and this division has been coming into the workplace, and we need to rebuild the trust and rebuild that communication in teams. Otherwise, otherwise psychological safety is really at risk, and when that's at risk, we're going to see we're going to see a turnover, decreased productivity, and the corporate culture is just not going to feel comfortable for people.
Yeah.
We're bringing me in to really, we want to really bring an attention to workplace wellness. So taking from the trauma informed background, and how do we bring what I know about cultural competency, cultural humility, and take the trauma language and bringing it into the corporate world and bringing it into terms that people could really understand and give people tangible skills that they could use on their everyday basis.
I love that. And I think that right now, trust is at the forefront of a lot of HR people. We've been hearing back. We've been reaching out to human resource representatives and people in the corporate workplace and realizing that trust is the topic of 2026. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear what you're like. Well, let's go through them one by one, each of your ingredients, and let's kind of have a conversation around it. What is going to help people become more resilient in 2026?
So I took all the things that I can offer and I actually call it the ARC method, the ARC method. So A is anchoring. We need to first make sure that people are in a healthy place where they're anchored and they're grounded. And that's really helping people understand how the nervous system works, how stress works, how people can be reactive and avoidant, and how perfectionism works. And what that is really helping leaders understand activation and how we could set the pace in corporate spaces. There's a lot of challenges that corporations are having, especially in the virtual world and where the communication breakdown happens. And, and there's ways and tools that we can give our leaders so that they can help people understand where the activation is so that people can actually learn to think and listen. But the first thing is, where are people? Are they anchored? Are they grounded? Are they coming to the workspace in a healthy place so that they could show up as their best selves and ready to be as productive and creative and collaborate as much as possible?
And in order to do that, they need to feel safe.
And in order to do, they need to feel safe.
They do, they really do, because otherwise, if you don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to disagree on anything.
No. And so that's what really brings back to this concept that I've called like about identity destabilization. And that's what we're seeing as the world is getting more polarized. People are starting to feel like they have to shrink who they are, even in the workspace. And when people do not feel like they can show up as their full self, this will impact how they show up at work. And that is a really key piece that leaders need to understand how that works and why that's important for them to understand. Because when people really do not, I call it identity destabilization. And when that happens, even in the workplace, there's an inner split about how I see myself and how I feel seen. And they're going to pull back. They're going to feel silence, reduced. There's going to be shutting down of participation, a lot of second guessing. People are going to feel highly sensitive to feedback and or feel like that the other person is being overly critical. There'll be a heightened sense of vigilance, and there's going to be erosion of trust and belonging.
Hmm.
Workplace, you want to feel like this is my team, I belong to this team. And there's going to be behaviors that can confuse other people, and that people might feel like they're over explaining or they'll feel difficult contributing to the team. So these things really do matter in every space that we're in. And it's really
Yeah.
important that these ideas are not just ideas that mental health practitioners are aware of. These are ideas that are really brought into every space so that we are really bringing not just a healthier workspace, but a healthier society that people can really become more actualized and being able to hold two different truths at the same time and be able to see other people in front of them as a whole person.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. I think that we are a bit different when we go to work than we might be in our personal life, but I think it's the level of acting that you have to do that really is the problem. So if you have to morph into somebody completely different than you are, than who you are to go to work, then that's exhausting. And you can only do it for a certain period of time before you break down.
Well, there's a line, right? Like you still have to be your professional self. Like so
Yeah.
you still have to look, put on, you can't just wear sweatpants. I mean, depending where you work, you can't just wear sweatpants to be a professional self. But if people are feeling like they can't wear their Star of David, or they feel like they can't, wear hijab at work because that identity is not acceptable, that's that's going to really impede their productivity. And it's actually, now we see there's neuroscience that tell us that it's going to lower their cognitive bandwidth. It's going to reduce their ability to think with clarity. It's going to reduce their ability to be creative, and it's going to reduce their problem solving ability. And they're going to misread cues. And when we misread cues, we're going to create unnecessary conflict at work.
Wow. So where do we go next with the arc?
So where we go next is what I call is recognizing it. Trust is about recognizing respect, and that's where the role of culture, identity, and power dynamics comes in. And that's where it's not about politics, but it's human psychology. So we used to talk about something called cultural competence, and that's really understanding and knowing other people's culture. But it's much deeper than that. We call it cultural humility, and that's understanding that we all show up with our own bias and our own lens. And how does that lens and where does that lens show up? And how is that impacting our relationships? And what are the steps that need to be made so that our lens is not impeding how we are looking at the other person in front of us? What am I assuming about this person in front of us? What was shaping my assumption? What am I missing? What am I getting wrong? So, cultural humility is engaging people beyond the surface. We are living in a place of cancellation culture, and we're living in a place where people just want to cancel and have moral superiority. So I always say lean in with curiosity and not cancellation, lean in with respect. Be curious about lived experiences, learn the cultural context of somebody's values and communication styles. Notice your own reactions, what's going on in your own body. Approach others with a beginner's mind and show respect even when you disagree. It's okay to disagree, and it's okay to say, like, I have my own perspective, but my perspective is not the end all be all. Like, this perspective is valuable and my perspective is valuable. And it's easier said than done. And what we have to do is offer concrete steps of how to get there. And cultural humility is not an easy place, even for trained mental health professionals, on how do we understand that psychology of how do we get to that place? How do we understand our own biases?
Yeah. And I think that part of there's so many layers to this, but the curiosity part I think is really key here because if we stay curious enough and in a learning mindset, then we stop judging because we're starting with curiosity and understanding that, you're not just who you see. There's way more to just what someone looks like or what you see on the outside. There's all this stuff on the inside that you don't really see just by looking at somebody. And, I think that I don't know if you know like what the number of seconds is how long does it take for someone to make a judgment or size you up like when they first meet you? It's like 10 seconds,
10
15.
seconds.
Yeah.
It's really 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's very, very fast. So we want to, make also this, like, it's also like a shift in mentality. We're really asking people to make a paradigm shift of how they've been operating in this world. It's a shift from defending to understanding. And when we get into defense mode, we're not allowing the other person to be seen and not allowing the other person to express what's important to them. We need to allow the other person to express what's important to them and allow them to say what needs to be going on the other side. So we want to be able to really be able to clarify these different pieces of, okay, I can you share how that landed for you? Not like, oh, I didn't mean it that way. That's not what I meant. Like, oh, I recognize that maybe what I said could have been hurtful or didn't land right. Can you share what that was like for you? Is there a better way that I could have approached it? Actually allows the other person to have space to speak. So we also need to acknowledge that, it wasn't necessarily maybe we have to acknowledge the impact
Yeah.
even when that wasn't the intent, and it's not just like a surface level apology. We're really going to a deeper place of like acknowledging this. I hear that this was different than what I meant it. We want to repair the moment. We don't want to just explain away the moment. We want to be able to, like, I always say, like, advocate with the people, not for the people.
Mm.
It's a very important thing. You don't, you want to be with them, not just speak, so, and that's where it really like allows us to return to our shared purpose. And remember, like, we're really working on the same team here and we have a shared purpose and a shared vision.
Yeah. Awesome. What is the next letter that we're going to go through?
Well, that's the connection and the repair. And so we really went into this. So, like, that's where bringing in a mental health professional to give over this idea of rupture and repair and connect and communication skills. How do we work through the misunderstandings in a way that both people are going to still feel respect and heard? And how do we work through the moments of resentment so that they don't build and build? And because what happens is the trust and the layers of trust just keep building upon each other. One of the things that's really important to remember is that it's an ongoing process. It's not just something that happens overnight. I think that companies feel like it's a checkbox. Oh, we'll do this one time workshop and it's like a checkbox and everything's going to be okay. And that's not really true. We need to build the leadership up and have the leadership have ongoing consultation. And it needs to be something that's built in either quarterly or monthly into teams, depending on how big the spaces is. And it has to be something that's an ongoing thing that's worked on. It's not a skill that's going to happen overnight.
Not a skill that's going to happen overnight. And in 2026, like, what do you think the most important thing that corporations need to think about as they head into building their curriculum for next year? What is it that you think people need to be talking about, learning about?
Cultural humility, this idea of humility, of being, and really of this idea of like, I don't know everything and I'm willing to learn. And that's almost anti the old corporate culture. It's like the opposite of the old corporate culture, but really it's leaning in with this workplace wellness piece of like, oh, if I could lean into this key concept of like humility, communication humility, cultural humility, allowing people to feel safe. Otherwise, anti Semitism, racism, genderism, it's going to build and it's going to build slowly. And that's not that we want to build healthy corporate cultures where people feel seen and heard and valued on their teams. If people don't feel seen, heard, and valued, they're not going to stay in your company.
That's right. That's right. Malka, what have you been busy doing lately? What's keeping you busy these days?
What's keeping me busy? A lot of keeping me busy. I have a private practice and I have been doing a lot of workshops on cultural humility. I do a lot of workshops on the psychology of anti-Semitism, the psychology of radicalization, and how do we talk to people who bought into extremism. Anti-Semitism, extremism is not just a Jewish problem. It's really a problem. It's really anti-American and democratic values and Western values. And it's something that we all should be aware of. And it's important for us all to be, it's really not just about what's happening to one part of the world. It's really something we should be aware of because terror, radicalism, fanatics, it's infiltrating everywhere. And this is something that we need to put this education in. We need to talk about critical thinking skills. We are really fighting a social media culture where people are getting their information from people who are not educated and are just speaking louder and building echo chambers and social filters, and bubbles and social bubbles. We want to really, so I'm busy fighting on all of those fronts. And I'm looking to partner with as many people because we want to build a brighter, for first and foremost, I'm a mother of three amazing kids and I want to build a better future for them. And this is how we do it, is we build a more psychological, healthier society.
Awesome. Where can my audience find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. I have a website, malkashaw.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on Instagram, Malka Shaw LCSW on LinkedIn, Malka Shaw LCSW on Instagram. And then if you're specifically interested in the Jewish part, Jewish mental health and anti-Semitism, connect with us on keshershalom.com and the Instagram and the LinkedIn as well. And you're a board member of Kesher Shalom.
Yes, I am. I am the director of learning. And if you are interested in getting more information and really digging into what your goals and objectives are for cultural competencies and learning for 2026, we'd love to have a conversation with you. I am so excited to have had you as a guest on the Stay on Course podcast. It's been a long time coming.
Really excited. We want to wish everybody, whatever holiday that they celebrate, happy and healthy for the new year. It should be, again, healthy is physically and emotionally well balanced. And we just want everyone to be healthy. And all, by the way, this is all going to reduce burnout as well.
Absolutely. Well, Malka, thank you so much for being a guest on the Stay on Course podcast.
Thank you so much.